In a small-town police station, where assumptions often outweigh evidence, a routine encounter turned unforgettable. A young black girl, barely 16, sat handcuffed. Her claim that her mother was a Special Forces operative met with a cop's mocking laughter. The room buzzed with skepticism, the officer's smirk widening until the door swung open and her mother, a decorated soldier in full uniform, stepped in, her presence silencing every doubt. Amara Johnson sat on a hard metal chair in the interrogation room of the Willow Creek Police Station, her wrists bound by cold handcuffs. At 16, she was tall for her age, with braided hair pulled into a neat ponytail and eyes that held a quiet defiance. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed faintly, casting a harsh glow on the gray walls. Across from her sat Officer Daniel Hargrove, a burly man in his 40s with a crew cut and a smirk that hadn't left his face since Amar was brought in. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, his badge glinting under the light. "You're telling me," Hargrove said, his voice dripping with amusement, "that your mom is in the Special Forces? Like, what? She's out there running Black Ops, and you're here spray painting a wall." He chuckled, glancing at his partner, Officer Sarah Mitchell, who stood by the door, her expression neutral but her eyes skeptical. Amara's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice steady. "That's what I said. My mom's a soldier. She's in the Army Special Forces. She's deployed right now, but she'll be back soon. You can call her." Hargrove laughed again, louder this time, the sound echoing off the bare walls. "Kid, I've heard a lot of stories in this room, but that's a new one. Special Forces? Your mom? Come on now. You expect me to believe that." He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table, his gaze patronizing. "Why don't you just tell me why you and your little friends were tagging that warehouse? Save us all some time." Amara's eyes narrowed, but she didn't waver. "I wasn't tagging anything. I was with my friends, yeah, but I didn't touch the paint. And I'm not lying about my mom. Her name's Captain Vanessa Johnson. Look her up." Hargrove shook his head, scribbling something in his notebook. "Captain Vanessa Johnson, huh? Sounds like something you saw in a movie. You got a phone number for this captain?" His tone was mocking, and he made air quotes with his fingers, his smirk widening. Amara rattled off a number, her voice calm but firm. "She's on leave this week. She's probably already on her way here. You'll see." Mitchell, the officer by the door, shifted her weight, her brow furrowing slightly. She hadn't said much since Amara was brought in, but she seemed less dismissive than Hargrove. "Let's just make the call," she said quietly, stepping forward. No harm in checking her story. Hargrove shrugged, clearly unconvinced. "Fine. Waste of time, but sure." He picked up the phone on the table, dialed the number Amara provided, and put it on speaker. The line rang once, twice, then went to voicemail. A woman's voice, crisp and professional, answered, "This is Captain Vanessa Johnson. Leave a message, and I'll return your call when able." Hargrove hung up before the beep, rolling his eyes. "Voicemail," he said, leaning back again. "Convenient. So what's next? You gonna tell me your dad's a Navy SEAL?" He chuckled at his own joke, but Amara didn't flinch. "My dad's a mechanic," she said flatly. "And my mom's who I said she is. You'll find out soon enough." The incident that landed Amara in the station was minor, at least by legal standards. She and two friends had been caught near a warehouse on the edge of Willow Creek, a small town in upstate New York. The warehouse, abandoned for years, had become a canvas for local teens, its walls covered in graffiti. A security guard had spotted Amara and her friends nearby with spray cans, though Amara insisted she hadn't touched them. The guard called the police, and Hargrove, who was on patrol, brought them in. The other two girls, both white and from well-known families in town, were released to their parents with warnings. Amara, however, was still here, her story about her mother met with disbelief. Hargrove leaned forward again, his tone shifting from mocking to stern. "Look, Amara, I'm trying to help you. You're 16, you've got no record, but you're not making this easy. Just admit you were tagging with your friends, and we can wrap this up. No need to spin tall tales about Special Forces moms." "I'm not lying," Amara said, her voice rising slightly for the first time. I didn't do anything wrong, and my mom will tell you the same. Why don't you believe me? Hargrove sighed, running a hand over his crew cut. Because, kid, I've been doing this job for 20 years. I know when someone's trying to pull one over on me. Special forces? That's elite military stuff. You're telling me your mom's out there doing covert missions, and you're what? Just chilling in Willow Creek? He shook his head. Doesn't add up. Mitchell, still by the door, cleared her throat. Dan, maybe we should look into it. She's sticking to her story, and that voicemail did say Captain. Hargrove waved her off. Voicemail proves nothing. Could be anyone. Probably her aunt or something. He turned back to Amara. You got any ID for this Captain Vanessa Johnson? Military records? Anything. Amara's shoulders slumped slightly, but her voice remained steady. She doesn't carry her military ID around like a badge. But she's real. She's been in the Army since I was a kid. She's been deployed 3 times. She's got medals, Silver Star, Bronze Star, a bunch of others. Call Fort Bragg. They'll tell you. Hargrove snorted. Fort Bragg? Now you're really reaching. You watch too many action movies, kid. He stood, stretching his arms. All right, let's take a break. You sit tight. Think about telling the truth. We'll call your mom again later. See if she picks up this time. Amara said nothing, her eyes fixed on the table. She wasn't scared, not exactly, but the weight of being doubted pressed on her. She'd grown up hearing stories of her mother's service, how Vanessa had joined the Army at 19, risen through the ranks, and earned a spot in the Special Forces, one of the few women to do so. Amara had seen the medals, the uniform, the photographs of her mom in fatigues, standing beside her team in places she couldn't name. But here, in this small town station, her truth was a punchline. Mitchell lingered as Hargrove stepped out to grab coffee. She approached the table, her voice low. Amara, I'm going to try that number again, okay? And I'll check the system for your mom. Just stay calm. Amara nodded, her expression guarded. Thanks, she said quietly. But you'll see. She's coming. An hour passed. Hargrove returned, sipping from a styrofoam cup, his skepticism unshaken. He tried a number again, got voicemail again, and tossed the phone onto the table. Still nothing, he said. You sure you don't want to change your story? We can call your dad instead, get this sorted. My dad's at work, Amara said, and I'm not changing anything. My mom's on her way. She was in D.C. for a briefing, but she's driving up now. She'll be here. Hargrove shook his head, muttering under his breath. Special Forces. Right. He turned to Mitchell. You find anything in the system? Mitchell, who had been typing at a computer in the corner, looked up. Nothing on a Captain Vanessa Johnson yet, but I sent a request to Fort Bragg. They're slow to respond on personnel stuff, especially for Special Forces. Classified records and all. Classified? Hargrove echoed, rolling his eyes. Of course. This kid's got an answer for everything. He turned back to Amara. All right, let's say your mom's this big-shot soldier. Why is she letting you run around with delinquents? Doesn't sound like great parenting. Amara's eyes flashed. Don't talk about my mom like that. She's a hero. She's been to places you can't even imagine, doing things you'd never have the guts to do. And I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was just with my friends. Hargrove opened his mouth to respond, but the door to the interrogation room swung open, cutting him off. A woman stepped inside, and the air in the room shifted. She was tall, her frame lean but muscular, her dark skin glowing under the fluorescent lights. Her Army uniform was immaculate. Green fatigues, beret tucked under her arm, and a chest adorned with ribbons and a silver star that caught the light. Her eyes, sharp and assessing, scanned the room before locking onto Amara. Mom, Amara said, her voice breaking with relief. Captain Vanessa Johnson crossed the room in 3 strides, her boots clicking against the linoleum floor. She stopped beside Amara, her hand resting briefly on her daughter's shoulder before turning to Hargrove. I'm Captain Vanessa Johnson, U.S. Army Special Forces. Why is my daughter in handcuffs? Hargrove's smirk vanished. He stood, his coffee cup forgotten on the table, his mouth opening and closing as he struggled for words. Mitchell stepped forward, her tone professional but tinged with unease. "Ma'am, your daughter was brought in for questioning regarding a vandalism incident. She wasn't charged, but we needed to verify her story." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "Her story? You mean the part where she told you who I am, and you didn't believe her?" Her voice was calm, but it carried the weight of someone accustomed to command. She turned to Amara. "You okay, baby?" Amara nodded, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "I'm fine. I told him you'd come." Vanessa's gaze softened for a moment before she turned back to Hargrove. "Take those cuffs off my daughter. Now." Hargrove fumbled with the keys, his hands unsteady as he unlocked the handcuffs. Amara rubbed her wrists, standing to hug her mother. Vanessa held her tightly, then stepped back, her attention returning to the officers. "I want to know exactly what happened. Start from the beginning." Mitchell recounted the incident, how Amara and her friend were found near the warehouse, how the security guard reported seeing spray cans, how Amara was detained while the others were released. Vanessa listened, her expression unreadable but her eyes sharp. When Mitchell finished, Vanessa nodded once.